A lot of us creators get stuck making images we are not satisfied with all the time. Images that are just good and not great. Well, I'm Tyler Edlin, and today I'm going to show you how I turned one of my older images that I just thought was good and into a great one. Of course, I feel there'll be plenty of tips here you guys can apply to your own paintings as well, so let's go.
Hey everyone! Today we want to talk about an exciting course from our friends at WingFox, Fantasy Environment Illustration with Boris Yansky. You'll learn everything you need to create a vibrant, illustrated fantasy environment with great composition and a solid underlying image design. The course covers technical knowledge on how to use the wide range of Photoshop tools available to you, as well as theory and fundamentals like sketching, research, and how to achieve a stylized look. This course is a great lesson in illustration and mark making, saving you time and effort in order to achieve a striking, stylized finish with a bright and vibrant color palette. The course offers extremely detailed, step-by-step look at the process, so you can follow along at your own pace while creating some awesome art. This course is exclusive to WingFox, so check it out if you want to improve today.
Alright, so my goals with this piece were straightforward enough. I wanted to take another attempt at a stunning vista that my imagination often likes to take me to. A tropical kingdom paradise in a fantasy world, one of my favorite subjects. And of course, by another attempt, I do mean at doing better than my previous 2018 version. This version I felt was fine. It has its merits. It just didn't live up to my own expectations. I just feel that the idea needs to be retooled, and that wouldn't be the first time. I also had a version from 2015, give or take. They keep going back. I love revisiting ideas and updating them and modernizing them and, improving my own standards. Another goal with this was to spend longer than I do on a typical work. So pretty much right now on my current schedule and everything, whether it's for client work or my own personal stuff, I typically have a workflow where I can get it down to about 8 to 16 hours per piece, or 1 to 2 billable days. With this, I want to aim for purely kind of putting at least 40 hours minimum in. I think back to 2010, 2011 when I really launched my career, I had a portfolio filled with these hand-painted fantasy environments that took me that long. And I feel sometimes I just need to return to form. Sometimes I just need to really go back to the basics and see where things are at. Sometimes I like to think of this as a self-evaluation or self-test or a stress test. Athletes do this all the time. They're always timing themselves, logging their progress. I think as an artist or a creator, this is a fairly healthy thing to do from time to time as well. But it's probably been 3+ years since I did anything of the sort. So here we go. And of course, one of the great side benefits of doing a picture like this, from my experience, is that it can serve as a marketing piece and net a lot of new clients for the coming years. And I have to state, it was not my goal to make this my new biggest portfolio piece or my new best piece. I don't like putting that kind of pressure on my shoulder before I even start. I genuinely just want to get in here, create, rediscover my own sense of artistry, leave all the business on the side. And that's why this wasn't recorded, the whole process. I kind of just left it. I never intended to really tutorialize it, at least in a formal sort of way. So in regards to creativity and design, I always tell my students that the best creative work happens when you mix your imagination with an experience, a piece of culture, or history. Sometimes it can be all the above. And this one was no different. I had spent this entire last summer, the summer of 2022, playing Xenoblade 3. This was a long-awaited fantasy game that I do hold dear and in my highest regards. I love the whole series. But it really ignited me to pick this old idea up and give it another go. I did the initial base sketch for this shortly after completing the last version of it, way back in 2018, 2017, somewhere along there. So I really want to give it my all in regards to just kind of painting it. But playing this game over the summer and sucking in all its awesome vistas and the creativity there, that was just a catalyst though. I did have a firm grasp on what would make up the smaller components of this picture. A lot of the details, the form language, these all just came from previous iterations, so I was simply compounding them and building off it. From the salt pools of Turkey to some Guatemalan valleys filled with waterfalls, I knew exactly which parts of reality that I'd base this idea off of, and I'm going to continue to work it from there. And it's just this week, students often ask, how do I come up with ideas so fast or seemingly never run out of them? It's simply just filling your head. That's a great way to start. Having real life experience, travel, visiting different countries, all of that is amazing to draw from. And there's very little substitute of that quality, but it's not entirely mandatory. I feel you really just need like a childlike sense of wonder where your own curiosity constantly fills and stimulates your imagination. For example, with this image, I simply asked myself, what would these pools of salt here that are, I believe, in Turkey, what would they be like if they were the size of lakes and had full castles, maybe even cities in them? That was just an image I stumbled upon randomly one afternoon on Pinterest, and it really just jump-started all this. And that's what exactly this is. The artistry for me always comes in, from like working within these set of limitations or parameters, establishing goals so I can really clearly visualize the outcome, and then working from there. So it really, this on paper would look like I wanted to make a kingdom that is derived from reference A plus reference B, and I want it to feel majestic. I want it to feel exotic. Again, applying an emotion to this reference is a real important component for me to make sure I hit the right beats or the notes, and to make sure the viewer is experiencing that same intention. Here I'll certainly say it's not important to value uniqueness. And the fact of the matter is that was never my goal. I feel any style or unique attributes or qualities of this picture were purely derived from the process itself. And that labor to pull that through all the way to the end, that was truly the hardest aspect. And so to really pull through all the labor and the hard work this was going to require, I really just had to double down and focus on the process. And that's one massive takeaway I have from all this, is that I had to go back to my bread and butter. I had to go to the tried and true. Like anybody, I can get lazy and I like to rush things, or I like to prematurely finish things in regards to my pictures here. I like to bust ideas out and move on. And this is for many reasons. A, it's easier to start on something new than to give one idea, one picture, your all. It's a trap a lot of students fall victim to. I see this all the time. B, I am impatient, and I know this, and I constantly have to deal with it on any image taking about longer than 16 hours. And C, it's just a damn lot of work to get something right. Simply put, I just needed to trust this process more so, and not fixate on the result. Another common pitfall, I think, for any creator. A lot of us go through that. But on that note, I do feel it's important to be self-aware of a few key things when attempting to tackle an image like this. The first thing being your own skill and comfort level with the subject. And 2, where would this fall on a line between something based in reality, like a Robin Hood story, or even Game of Thrones for the most part? Or is this a full mythology level of design, like a Final Fantasy or Star Wars? That's a massive spectrum, and they really do require different levels of design and believability to pull off, with the latter requiring a lot more skill and design work. And so with that, it's easy enough right? I think to skip a lot of the sketches, to jump through hoops on the planning phase, get right into the compositions, the color sketching, the layouts, right? So skipping planning often leads to frustration and wasted time. I can tell you that from experience. But here, I failed my way through numerous mood sketches, compositions. I grinded out pages of building designs, form language explorations. I even modeled or had modeled several of these components in 3D. It's exhausting, but I did enjoy it. It really is worth it. Anything worthwhile is going to be difficult, I feel. In the past versions of this image, I just jumped right into painting. I didn't work on my setup. I didn't plan, not nearly as much as a picture like this did require. So it was a lesson to learn for sure. And all this comes down to having a sense of persistence, valuing that over perfection, and of course finding that balance between the two. This really comes down, I feel it's important when you're improving or working on your new big picture. You want to hit that right difficulty level for yourself, as I was saying. With this current version of this idea, I never did strive for perfection. I personally feel it's quite far from it, but I'm mostly satisfied with it as of the recording. But a constant trap I fall into when working on something like this, especially at the 12-hour, at the 15 or 20 hours, is that I often say it's good enough, or I'm happy with it. I think I'm just easy to satisfy in that regards. I just love looking at pictures, but I'll move on to the next painting, right? It's just easier. I don't think it's laziness. I really doubt it, but it certainly has to do with my own patience or lack thereof. I did, throughout this whole latter half of this image, remind myself or tell myself in my head that it wasn't good enough and I had to push through it to achieve this longer style painting. This image itself, it really had no photo textures or elements in it. Like, everything in here is either a little bit of 3D or all by hand. A common way that I speed up the workflow on this is to use photo elements, but I took that out of the equation for this one. And I did have very minimal 3D, as I said. So it is very time consuming. And it did take, I can't tell for sure, but it had to have taken 40 to 50 hours. And that's not counting all that extracurricular work, doing all the designs on the side, time gathering reference. And there was numerous reference sessions I went on, that I had to, if I felt stuck, I went and grabbed more reference. But I spaced it out. I paced myself through this image. I think when working on a longer image, one thing I did learn is having the ability without that clear deadline allows me to pace it at a comfortable rate. So I never really worked on this when I'm tired. I feel I produce shit work when I'm tired. I didn't work on this when I was in a bad mood at the end of the day, when my kids were acting up. I left it for me when I was feeling that passion, to muscle through it. But I could have easily spent 12, 15 hours more adding extra detail, getting into deeper levels of world building, adding additional ideas like airships coming through the main hole on that main keep, or fantastical creatures skirting about in the environment. But I could have, would have, could have. It's always that. I still think at the end of the day, it's better to have something finished than keep putting it off to strive for perfection, where it ends up in limbo on my unfinished folder, waiting to be perfect. Perfectionism, perfection is an immeasurable trait after all, and it's a trap a lot of artists fall into. I can simply add all these ideas into the next painting, or I can find a way to streamline them into my 2025 version, of this painting. I think next time when I do try this again, I'm going to try to work a little faster. I'm going to try to optimize my workflow more, use more 3D, maybe get a helping hand, adding some texture, and yeah, I think I can speed it up. But this is all fun, right? You learn something. I've been doing this for 12, 15 years. You always learn something new. It's always a great experience.